Hey, everyone. Welcome to Storytelling Time, the place where every story comes alive. If you love getting lost in thrilling tales, gripping mysteries, and epic adventures, you're in the right spot. I'm your storyteller, and here, we don't just tell stories, we bring them to life. Whether it's fantasy, mystery, horror, or even a bit of comedy, we're all about immersion. So grab a snack, get comfy, and prepare for a journey that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single chapter. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join the Storytelling Time family. Let's dive into the stories that await, starting now. The Watchers in the Trees. A few years ago, I lived in a quiet little town called Windridge, tucked away in the dense woods of Georgia. My house sat across the street from a vast, uncharted forest that stretched for miles, thick with towering pines and twisted oaks. I often found myself wandering through it during the day, drawn to the peace it offered. The way the sunlight filtered through the trees, casting long shadows on the forest floor, made the place feel almost magical. But there was always an odd feeling I couldn't shake, a sense that something wasn't quite right. I had spent countless hours in the woods before, growing up in places just like it. But the woods here felt different. Even though the bird song in the area was constant, there was something strange about the forest. No matter how long I walked, I never heard a single bird chirp. No crows, no sparrows, not even the distant call of a hawk. It wasn't the silence of a deep, undisturbed forest either. It was the absence of sound. Like the woods were holding their breath. It was subtle at first, easy to dismiss. But after weeks of walking through them, I began to feel it, this overwhelming sense that something was wrong, something hidden just beneath the surface. It became a routine for me, to walk deeper and deeper into the woods every afternoon. I had a spot I favored, a clearing deep within the forest where 4 ancient oak trees stood in a perfect square. They loomed over a sharp drop-off that led to a jagged ravine, where the sounds of rushing water echoed faintly in the distance. The spot had an eerie tranquility to it. I would sit there for hours sometimes, just watching the play of light and shadow as the day turned to dusk. It was a place where the world seemed to fall away, where time slowed down and everything felt still. But that stillness was always unsettling. One day, after weeks of visiting the clearing, something strange caught my eye. As I walked toward the trees, I noticed that something had been nailed to the bark of each of the 4 oaks. At first, I thought it might be old trail markers or remnants of some forgotten forest survey. But as I drew closer, I saw that they were rusted metal signs, decayed and weather-beaten, so old they barely resembled signs at all. The metal was pitted, and the surface was covered in patches of deep rust. Whatever was once written on them had long since faded into the brown, crumbling iron. The air around the trees seemed to grow colder, the silence pressing in on me. I stared at the signs for a long moment, trying to make out any trace of their original purpose. But the more I looked, the more something felt off. Why were they only on these trees? The ones I always stopped at, the ones that marked my spot. Why not any of the others that dotted the woods? What was the purpose of these signs? And, more disturbingly, who had placed them there? That question lingered in my mind long after I turned to leave. But the deeper question, that gut-wrenching feeling that something had been watching me from the moment I stepped into that clearing, kept me awake at night. A few days passed, and the unease continued to gnaw at me. I told myself I was overreacting, that it was just an old survey or some forgotten relic from a past long gone. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't supposed to be there, that I was being watched. Then, one night, everything changed. It was around midnight, and Mia, my girlfriend at the time, and I were in the kitchen, talking and making some late-night snacks. The house was quiet, save for the sound of the refrigerator humming and the occasional creak of the old wooden floor. Suddenly, without warning, we were interrupted by the most horrifying sound I've ever heard. A scream, a blood-curdling, inhuman scream, pierced the night air. It was so loud that it rattled the windows, so close that for a moment, I thought it was coming from right outside the house. Mia and I froze, exchanging a look of confusion and fear. I quickly flipped the porch light on, but there was nothing. No movement, no shadow, nothing at all. The scream came again, louder this time, and then another, and another. It wasn't just one scream, it was multiple, a chorus of voices all crying out in agony. The sound was impossible to ignore. We rushed outside, our hearts pounding in our chests. We stood in the cold night, straining our ears, trying to pinpoint where the screams were coming from. And then it hit me. The screams weren't coming from the house. They were coming from the woods. The sound was unnatural. It was like people screaming, yes, but not quite. It was too guttural, too distorted. It almost sounded like a chorus of voices layered on top of one another, all screaming at once in perfect, agonizing harmony. It was a moan, a wail that pierced straight through the bones, something no living creature should be able to produce. The sound was so raw, so full of despair, that it made my skin crawl. I tried to rationalize it, maybe it was a pack of coyotes, or perhaps bobcats in distress. But I knew those sounds. This was nothing like that. The pitch, the depth of the cries, it wasn't right. It wasn't natural. Mia clung to me, wide-eyed, as we stood there on the porch, unable to move. We both heard it, no, felt it, rising from the depths of the woods, each scream sending a chill down our spines. The forest seemed to pulse with the sound, alive with something dark and unseen. After what felt like an eternity, the screams stopped as abruptly as they had started. The silence that followed was even more deafening. No crickets, no wind, no distant rustle of leaves. Just nothing. The next day, I went back to the clearing, though every part of me screamed to stay away. I don't know why I felt compelled to go, it was almost as if something was calling me back. But when I arrived, the trees were different. The signs, those rusted, faded signs, were gone. I never returned to that place again. To this day, I don't know what was out there in those woods. Whether it was something I should have stayed far away from, or something ancient and forgotten that had awakened. All I know is that the woods of Windridge hold secrets that I'm not meant to understand, and I've made peace with that. There are things in this world, in those woods, that should remain undisturbed. I've learned that the hard way.